However, a friend of mine reminded me yesterday how wrong that approach would have been. Because while the board knew that its action with respect to Coach Marino would be important to some, what we did not take into consideration was that somehow, like a shockwave, it could send a message to every employee in the district that, hey, you better watch out because the Board of Ed just added an arbitrary component into the mix. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could be further from the truth. I used to work in an environment where, as part of the culture, we had what was referred to as financial flexibility. That basically meant that every year, about 5 to 10% of the workforce was let go in order to save money or reallocate dollars. Firing decisions had nothing to do with merit, contributions, years of service, or anything else. When your time was up, it was up. It was arbitrary. And it was a horrible work environment to be in. If somehow our action created that perception among district employees that there would be some arbitrary component added to the review process, that was unintended. That doesn't mean the conclusion we reached here was wrong. It simply means that there were unintended consequences that we need to be more mindful of in the future. And if that is the case, then I apologize, because again, no one should have any concern that there is now somehow an arbitrary aspect baked into the review process. There is none. And as much as I struggle to see the unintended consequences of our actions on all coaches, it was even harder for me to see that we apparently have created the same impact on teachers, paraprofessionals, and perhaps others throughout the district. For all of the reasons I just mentioned, I will again apologize because these organizations were not even germane to the conversation that we considered specific to only one coach. I understand you may have had a different takeaway. And I will add, as it relates to the WEA, that I don't think in fairness to anyone, in any organization, you should have put out a letter to the membership that reads in part, clearly the WEA has concerns with the prior decision, and we believe the Board of Education has listened to parents concerned that their children are not getting enough playing time. Hence the decision not to reappoint Joe. It is unfortunate that the WEA formed such a wrong conclusion. But then again, they didn't have the facts. The fact is that in no instance was the playing time used as a basis for coaching decisions made for the winter of 2014 or any other season during my 5 years on the board. To say otherwise is simply uninformed. The other point that I wanted to discuss from this letter reads as follows with respect to tonight's meeting. We need you to rise to the occasion for Joe and yourselves. This demonstration needs to have many more people present than were there during our recent demonstrations and negotiations in May. Who will the Board of Education go after next? Will it be you? That is the part that I find so offensive. This is exactly the kind of rhetoric that should not be welcomed in
Really?
history. Who will the Board of Education go after next?
Well, who?
Aside from being wholly unsupportable and inappropriate, it is simply playing on fear in a manner that is, in my opinion, unconscionable. The Board of Education works long and hard for everyone in the district. And it should not offend anyone when I say that hands down, our number one priority is the well-being of the students. If that means that we didn't agree with the decision that the athletic director made, so be it. The law wasn't set up so that the Board of Education is expected to simply say yes to everything everybody wants. In fact, that would be negligent on our part. And we take our part very seriously. It is not, and it will never be, who is next. There has also been a lot written about the importance of a winning season. While it is nice to win, and nobody wants a losing season, we should all be clear that this board would take a solid coach with a losing season over the alternative any day of the week. Simply put, wins aren't worth much if they aren't accompanied by some basics. That means a coach has to coach all of the players from the time they enter a gym or enter a field for a practice until they leave. Notice I didn't say that you had to play them all. But a coach needs to be fair, needs to communicate to all players in an appropriate manner. And a coach needs to communicate with parents. That doesn't mean the parents have to like what the coach has to say. But parents need to be in the loop. And most importantly, it means a coach can't disparage or inappropriately and deliberately humiliate any player. Not one-on-one, not in front of team members, not at all. At any time. And at the same time, we know that's not easy. And we know things get misconstrued and misrepeated and take a life of their own when they weren't meant to. And we have an incredibly high tolerance for accepting all of that. No one parent is going to call up screaming and cause us to accept their word, and that's that. It doesn't work that way. And some people say that this result was a complete surprise. No one involved in this should have been completely surprised. Board members received a short list of letters questioning this decision. They also received letters of support. And as I read the letters opposing the board's decision, for the most part, the conclusions reached in those letters were not accurate, but that was primarily due to a lack of knowledge of the facts. Had we had discussions in public, I have no doubt there would have been no confusion on why we ended up where we ended up. Mr. Marino did not ask us to do that when he was entitled to do so. I would also note, with respect to the few letters that were received, other than the ones I just got tonight, I replied to each, with the exception of the only one that was from a student to whom Dr. Dolan replied. And in my replies, I acknowledged receipt, noted that the wrong conclusions were reached where in fact that was the case, provided my phone number, and invited a conversation. Only 2 people took me up on that, and that's fine. But no one should think that this board cannot stand behind and support its actions, because that is not the case. There has been no change in policy. There has been no change in direction. And there was no hidden message intended for anyone. I hope this helps. If anyone ever has a question about the board's commitment, they should not hesitate to ask.